Welcome to Who Are You, a CSI podcast. I am Raven, and I've seen CSI through and through around 3 to 4 times.
And I'm Nick, and these are my first time experiencing these episodes.
And today we are reviewing Season 3, Episode 16, Lucky Strike. Original air date is February 20th, 2003. Director is Kenneth Fink. Writers are Anthony E. Zeiker and Eli Talbert. And we begin today's episode, how we begin many an episode, with shots of the Vegas Strip before we go to a car chase. But before we follow that car, Nick, what is our Vegas score for today's episode?
Back to back, we have maxed out our Vegas score again.
Okay, I thought we were going to, because there's a lot of cutscenes. This is really not a spoiler, but we end with shots of the Vegas Strip, which is not normally how we end.
We were not over. We were at a 54 out of 55, and I thought I'm gonna have to go through and quadruple check my counts. And
Yeah.
I also had assigned some bonus points because there's a lot of Vegas-iness.
There is a lot of Vegas-iness.
Vegas in the background of scenes.
Yep.
The first opening scenes are like you're in the Strip, you're in the heart of it, and they're making Vegas references, and so, but then the very end of the thing, there's 15 seconds, multiple shots of the Vegas Strip, and 50 the score went up by well over the cap. So even without the bonus points awarded, it would be well into 55 territory per minute of episode. This beats out last episode.
Ooh.
But does not beat it out in total amount of Vegas score.
That
loses by 1 point.
Oh my goodness. I thought it would lose by more than that.
Which you would think would make me more want to count, but because I gave some bonus points, I felt like
no, it's fair.
It probably deserves to lose by 1 point. Yeah. Also, it's a shorter episode. But lots of Vegas, 3 scenes, 8 seconds to start with. Okay. All told, I think it's 11 scenes.
Okay.
And something I should count the seconds because we were at 36 seconds last time. We were at 46 seconds this time.
Ooh.
Last time the opening was really weird. They were 7 1-second shots.
Yes.
That they were cutting.
Yeah.
And so it got a lot of points by that. But this is actually the most seconds of Vegas time we had. Or actually, I guess I lied. There's 6 less seconds, but it's actually still 40. So it's more.
Okay. I mean, still more.
Because the bonus points get thrown into the second.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Gotta make sure I read my thing. So, yeah, it was great. Great Vegas score. Great Vegas theme. Great Vegas-y name.
Yeah.
Although
Lucky
I expected
Strike.
there to be bowling in this episode, and there was no bowling.
There was no bowling. It's true.
So, also, I will bring this up later. I got confused, and I had to Google something, and then I was really disappointed by a decision they made based on the name of the episode.
Ooh,
but I don't know if the name came first or late. I don't know the order of operations.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get there. So we go from shots of the Vegas Strip to a little car chase. So we follow this car being chased. It ends up stopping in front of a casino. The officers are telling the driver to exit the car, get out of the car. They think the driver's intoxicated because he was
all over
ramming against
them, down hills through parking lot. It was a crazy car chase.
It was a pretty intense car chase, and the driver does. I guess listen to instructions. Maybe not. We don't really know.
Flops out of the car.
Yeah, so they get out of the car. They stand-ish for a moment, and in that moment, we realize that there's a giant wooden stake sticking out of the top of their head. They then fairly collapse on the ground.
I actually had no idea it was a wooden stake at first.
I mean, that's fair. It's it's dark. It's dark.
A knife handle or something.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's dark lighting. I probably knew it was a stake because I've seen this episode before. I don't know if I would have known that's what it was on my very first watch of it.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, they tell you instantaneously what, more or less what it is, but yeah, I actually because you can kind of see it. Maybe it's after he stops or something, and so I sort of made an assumption from a far away scene, and so then I didn't question it as you could see better.
Yeah. So then Grissom is on scene. We learn that the victim is Alex James. I was going to say Alex Jones. It's not Alex Jones.
No, it is not.
Thankfully, it is not. Well,
I was going to say. Unfortunately, thankfully.
Unfortunately, not. It's not.
It doesn't matter. It's a fake TV show. No matter
it's a fake TV show.
Change the world.
They can. It's true. So the victim is Alex James. We go to credits. We're then with Warwick and Catherine. They're at a casino or a different casino. We learn from the casino manager that there's been a kidnapping, a high-profile kidnapping. A ransom note was left at the front desk. We learn that the kidnapping victim is a 5-year-old boy whose father is Tavian Toombs, who is a famous professional basketball player.
I like when they're like coming in the back parking lot and the bellhop is like, "Can I take your bags?" Because they're
like,
sort of trying to explain that like the super VIPs.
Yes, this is very VIP. Yes. They're being led through the back to avoid having to mingle with the normal people.
A casino manager,
yes,
too. So that guy's probably like, "Oh, my boss is he only does this when it's like Tom Brady or LeBron James," or which I assume like when you hear like teams like obviously Warwick has to like tell you who that is because it's a fake character.
It's a fake character, yeah.
But you're about to like you'd be like, you know, I mean, circa that age, someone would be like Kevin Garnett.
Yes, I agree entirely. So then Warwick and Catherine enter a hotel room where Tavian Toombs is berating his staff over the disappearance of his son.
So I have a pretty big spot, the guest star here.
Is it his security guard?
Yes.
I feel like I know him. I looked all the way through his IMDb and I was like, I don't know where I know him from.
So what's crazy is when they first open the door and they're kind of like walking in this room and they're going to meet this famous basketball player. I assumed he was the basketball player because I recognize him right now. This is Mahershala Ali.
Yes.
So I actually wrote a lot of things down from Mahershala Ali because I find this really funny. So I know him from, I think a lot of people really got to know him from House of Cards, which is the Kevin Spacey political show. But before that, he was in a weird sci-fi show called The 4400,
which I heard about but never watched.
He's also in Luke Cage, the Netflix Marvel show, and a really weird sci-fi show called Alphas that I used to watch on the Sci-Fi Network. So that's like really right on, but he's in like 2 big like Academy Award winning movies. Recently he was in the Green Book, and then he was in the almost not Academy Award winning movie Moonlight, which was the famous misread of who won the Academy Award.
Yes.
That year.
I forgot about that.
And then he's in the new one of the seasons of True Detective, which is popular. Like I don't know what network it's on. Paid streaming service platform show.
I don't know.
Showtime, HBO.
Yeah, I watched the first season of it. I haven't watched any of the other seasons yet.
And I wrote down in my notebook, he has to be the person who kidnapped this kid, because in my mind, like I've said this before.
Spoiler alert, listeners.
Yeah, and I will come back to this when I continue. Spoiler, I got so far at the end that I said, secret subplot, maybe this will come back in a later episode. And then I started writing it out and I realized, spoiler alert, it's hard to say this without giving away a spoiler for how the episode ends. But the idea that they did this all to get that kid back into his circle until I realized, oh wait, they had to kill one of his other sons to accomplish this. Yeah. I was like, oh, scratch.
No,
what a terrible idea, Nick. Although that would have made a way better ending to this episode. You would have had to not kill the kid or something. Like maybe he was just still missing, or they thought they ran. I don't know what it would be, but it would be really funny.
Spoiler alert: this kidnapping does not end in a happy story.
Yeah, no,
listeners.
Well, we have I feel like this is like best of the best. Like they like pull some of the plot lines from a bunch of good past episodes to make this like I don't know, like I don't want to call it I called it best of the best, but I mean like they're like sampling a sample platter of past CSI episodes. And all I can think is last week's episode being really long, we are still probably in like sweeps territory, prime time.
Probably.
We've put a lot of time and energy into this episode. We're trying to sink viewers in and stuff like that. So yeah, it was funny, like the fact that I know this person, but really this is just the beginning of their career.
Yeah. This was like one of their earliest credits.
It's just a bit part.
Yep, just a bit part for them. So
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, he's not Tavian Toombs. He's not the basketball player. He's the basketball player security guard.
In my notebook, and then in small print, because I just squeeze it in, it says security guard.
Security guard.
Because I thought it was Tavian Toombs.
It's not Tavian Toombs. So they do end up talking to Tavian Toombs, though. And after initial resistance in accepting their help, he does hand over the ransom note, lets them know that they threw the envelope in the basket. They also admit to like everybody touching the note, and that could be a problem.
I watched this. I missed the line where it was like the note went to the front desk.
Yes.
And I was like, why did he call the police if he was reticent to work with him?
Yeah.
And I watched it the second time. I was like, I just
The
like
front desk got the ransom note.
was glancing away, like just getting settled into the episode.
Yeah, it's a quick little blip.
They say it so quickly that I was like, I missed it. I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yep.
The casino called the police.
Yes. So then Jim Brass is interviewing the nanny. We learn that she had taken the children to a carnival. And after some persuading, Isaiah went on the carousel, and that's where he vanished. We then are back with Catherine and Warwick with Toombs, and there's a bunch of staff, like the hotel manager's there. There's like other staff members. We learn that the hotel is paying the ransom.
They're fronting
the money for the ransom
on his credit line. So he's basically just cashed $5 million in credit out from the casino. And he's using that to pay the ransom.
So he's using that to pay the ransom. We go back to the other crime scene. Grissom and Nick are there, and we learn that they're gonna have to transport this victim with a spike in his head, because that's gonna be the best way to preserve evidence. So they're gonna leave that spike in during transport. And Nick notes that the victim is very dirty, but they know that he's not homeless. So Nick's trying to figure out, like, why is he like filthy? Why is he like covered in like dust and like
streets? Dirt.
Yeah, like it's not really like quite making sense.
Nails are black.
Yeah, so Grissom takes a scraping from the nails, and then the detective with them finds a .38 special in the car. So,
which I mean, it's interesting, but it's almost moot. It's like at this point, like it becomes important later. But like if you're like, oh, he's got a gun in the car, yeah, but no one was shot.
Yeah, they were.
The guy has a spike in his head. Well, they don't know that yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, spoiler alert.
You know what I mean? Like people own guns.
Yeah.
Maybe not the safest way to transport a gun. Rolling around the bottom.
Yeah, just rolling around on the bottom of your car. Yeah.
But I don't know what the rules are in Nevada, but
I don't either.
Yeah, but obviously it's important that we, as the audience, see that and observe that. Although then they oddly refer to the gun by a different name later on.
Oh, do they?
I think they call it a Barrett later, which is a manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, I only know that from like random things I've seen on YouTube. I'm not entirely sure how they would have expected
like the average person
to follow suit. And like, I was like, don't you want to like keep people? I don't know. Sometimes they try to get slangy. They try to refer to things multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, aren't you just confusing your audience when you
Probably.
do that? And I was like, how many times is this why I miss stuff sometimes? I was like, I didn't know that was also called a X, Y, or Z. And it's like, no wonder I didn't get it.
Yeah, like, of course. How would I? Or then Warwick is with the note. Sarah enters, and Warwick is admitting defeat that there's like nothing on the note. But then Sarah smells it, and then Warwick smells it. So then we have this little montage-y moments of Warwick like running an experiment on the note. He's like fuming it, and he's like collecting a sample into like extracting scents into like, it's not coal, but like an agent to like absorb the scent.
Charcoal.
Like, thank you.
Activated charcoal.
Yes, like activated charcoal. Thank you. I was like, I cannot think of the word that I'm trying to think of. I was like, coal is what was coming in my head, but that's not what it is. We're then with Grissom with Doc Robbins.
Can I say, when they I don't know how much later they reveal what the scent is, but that is
like
not,
in like literally the next scene after this scene.
This is not like something like I didn't know what I expected them to find, but when they reveal it, I was like, wait, you had to do all of that?
Agreed. It's not a groundbreaking discovery. We'll get there in just a moment. Doc Robbins knows that this is something straight out of Nosferatu, which I had a chuckle because Nick and I are recording this the day after Halloween.
Yeah.
And so I thought, that's kind of funny. Doc Robbins pulls the spike out. Nice little moment, takes the spike out. Warwick and Catherine then have a walk and talk. This is where they confirm that everybody touched the note. Like front desk staff touched the note. Davian touched the note. His wife touched the note. Everybody touched the note. This is where we also...
Mark, it's like
covered in fingerprints. This is where we learn that the scent on the note is menthol and nicotine. Which, all right, a lot of people smoke.
Yeah, not I think a great tip, although maybe menthol is more advantageous.
Maybe.
But also like that's a real like pungent smell. If you are a non-smoker, like that is like slaps you in the face. You wouldn't be smelling it that closely like Sarah and work and
Yeah,
be like,
like,
oh, gee, I wonder what that could be.
what could the smell be? It's menthol nicotine. We then join Work and Jim Brass on a stakeout. The first sign of movements is just the newspaper guy. He's just there to like refill the newspaper stand. So newspaper guy goes. We learn that like we're already past the time that the money is supposed to be picked up, so
Yeah.
everyone's kind of a little antsy.
And
Another man
this,
approaches. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is not, there's not a technical callback in their sense, but I feel like they were intentionally reframing and pacing this to be exactly like the golf course money drop from the other kidnapping episode from I think it's season one,
Season one.
including
Yep.
with like the random person who was just like using the
Yeah, just
trash
using
barrel,
the trash barrel.
like
Yep.
random guy using it. I was like, it was like, this feels almost like too intentional.
It could be a subtle callback. This could
Yeah.
very well be a subtle callback. So another man approaches. It turns out to be Tavian's security guy. He's just saying he's doing what Tavian asked him to do. Jim Brass is telling him, well, the kidnappers obviously spotted you. They made us. And then Jim Brass gets a call, which brings us to Warwick, Catherine, and Jim Brass approaching what we very quickly learn is Isaiah's body. It's a young boy's body, but we learn very soon after that it is Isaiah's. Catherine thinks that the killer or the person who dumped the body didn't even stop the car. And so now they're starting to think,
Yeah.
oh, something obviously went wrong here. Like this, the money wasn't picked up because Isaiah died.
Yeah.
And it's starting to look like that was not the purpose, right? Like that. So
It's really interesting. Like it's hard to talk about now, knowing how the episode plays out. But like, it was like, I actually didn't really quite clock the logic, which is like, well, why would you not pick the money up, right? Like, what do you care if the
guilt
kid is alive or dead?
Guilt.
Like, get your money. And like that happens all the time. Like people kidnap, and all I could think is like, oh, I'll tell you, at this point, I actually still think the bodyguard was in on it. And I was like, didn't he know the police were going to be there? Like, how was he trying to pick the money up?
Yeah,
Like, with the police watching him, like, I thought he would have known that they would be there watching it. And like, maybe they'll reveal he thought they left. You know, I really still thought the bodyguard was in on this whole thing at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. I can understand why you would think that. We then have Tavian and his girlfriend talking. The girlfriend is saying she doesn't want them to cut him up. Like, don't let them like cut my baby up. And so Tavian goes to talk to Catherine, and Catherine tells him that an autopsy is mandatory in a case like this. Like, this is not a, and this is, I think part of this scene is to show Tavian not getting his way when Tavian is very used to getting his way.
Yeah. I think it's really cool because like he's just used to like saying like, what do you mean, like, you know, aren't you going to give me X or aren't you going to give me Y, and getting his way? Like he's not actually very pushy and like doesn't overly aggressive about it. He's just wait, you telling me no? And Catherine's just like, yeah, dude, these are the rules. And he's like, okay, you know, he doesn't keep fighting her. Like he's accustomed to getting his way. So he's like almost shocked that someone's not giving him his way, more so than he's like trying to fight back and be like, you have to give me my way or something. Don't you know who I am? He's not the don't you know who I am type of guy.
He's not pulling a Karen.
No.
We then go with Grissom and Nick. They're in the lab. We learn that Grissom, and I assume this is from underneath the victim's nails, has found some scat, has found some bat guano. And they're questioning also at this point if the mineral that is intertwined with the stake is quartz. So they're starting to put some pieces together about where the crime scene. Little shiny rocks were intertwined with the wood. We then have Catherine approaching Warwick, and she tells him that like she'll handle this, aka going in and talking to Doc Robbins about the autopsy. And Warwick thanks her and says that he'll go process the evidence. So Catherine goes in with Doc Robbins. There at the moment, there's no apparent cause of death, but Isaiah does have a bruise around like the entirety of his chest, like goes all the way around him. Has this bruise.
Do you think they like I also thought they were way underplaying the other random bruises on this kid.
I thought they
thought
were
they were going to
too.
be so important.
They're not.
Just very matter of fact. Oh, that's from rough housing with his
Yeah,
brothers.
he
And
has brothers. It's roughhousing.
I was like, what?
Raffling.
Brothers? What are you talking about? Like that kid looked like he's getting beaten by his parents.
Yep. Nope. That's not anything they come back to. Instead, the bruise around the chest prompts Doc Robbins to ask if they found rope at the scene, and Catherine has to say, "We don't know where the scene is yet." We then have Warwick processing the sweatshirt that Isaiah was wearing. He finds, so it's weird. Isaiah finds hair. I don't know if this is hair or fiber, because in later scenes, he talks about, they talk about analyzing fiber and analyzing hair.
So there's a bunch of different, you can see it. It's all over the jacket, like hair.
Yeah.
I think the thing he picks up is supposed to end up being the rope.
The rope fiber. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's later on when I was taking notes, I was like, wait a second here. Grissom, Nick, and the detective are then at the salvage yard that's owned by the victim. It appears that he loaded his own gun. Grissom finds a melting furnace, one in which you can melt metals in.
Yeah, a furnace. You know.
There's maps, there's like topographical?
Yeah, topographical maps. They show the landscape.
Yep, just like all over the walls. But on one of them, Grissom finds blood spatter and a bullet hole, which leads them to believe that they're looking for another body. And
a bullet. No, they found the bullet on the floor, right? I think it's the same scene.
It might be.
Yeah, because Nick goes like through and through, and then he gets down on the floor, picks it up, and has blood all over the tip.
Yeah, you are probably.
I was like, yeah, correct. They're like, and that's when they're like, oh, I think we're looking for another body.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Because like the guy could just fired his gun,
but there was blood spatter too,
covered in blood. Yeah, and it was the bullet itself was covered in blood.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, they definitely shot somebody.
That's fair. Yeah, that's enough compounding evidence to lead to that conclusion. We then have Jim Brass with a bellman or a casino worker. I don't know if
bellhop.
Bellhop, and Jim Brass is talking to him about a $10,000 chip tip.
I feel like they cut out like a weird scene.
I feel like they did. This felt very like, wait, what? Huh?
It's like, oh, they're holding the belt. They arrested a bellhop. He somehow has one of Mr. Tavian's $10,000 chips or whatever. We're going down there to question him, and then like they do a different scene and they come back to him. Mm-hmm. Where we just jump in. And it's like, am I supposed to know who this guy is? Am I supposed to know what the significance of this chip is?
This scene felt very abrupt. It definitely felt like we were dropped like 20 seconds after the scene already started.
There were not 46 seconds we could have taken from anywhere.
No, we were like right up against the time here. But this bellman does tell us a story about how, women often try to talk to Tavon, but last night a woman actually did get through to Tavion.
Can I ask you this question? Mm-hmm. He says the boys or the men want autographs and the women want something else. And I wasn't sure if he meant money or something else. I think supposed to mean money, but like,
well, I think it's
why did he just say money?
I think it's supposed to mean that they will throw themselves at him physically,
yeah,
in order to then reap the benefits of his wealth.
Yeah, it was sort of like a nebulous, and I went like, what are they trying to say here? Because like, I feel like you could take it either way, and maybe that was the point.
Yeah,
it was kind of funny. I was like, I was unsure even in the second watch through.
You're like, what?
Because it's really all about the chip too. So it's like I think you're supposed to just saying money, but why wouldn't you just say money?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this woman gets through. They're arguing. She's telling him that he's a deadbeat dad and, he's not showing up for his kid.
Great recall of this conversation this guy's having.
Yeah. He's like that $10,000 chip really solidified this as a core memory in my brain. Jim Brass is then talking to the manager who, after some persuading, after some pushing, admits that the woman is Bridget Willis, and she is on Tavion's list, which is why she was able to approach the table and talk to him.
And I think the bellhop says oh, normally as guys keep people away, and
Yeah.
presumably, I don't know if they were supposed to not be there, but my assumption was because as we're about to find out really who this person is, they would know not to do that in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. But before we'll get back to that in just a bit. Before we do, we get confirmation from Nick and Grissom that those specks seen, those glittery specks seen in the steak, were in fact quartz fluorite,
Just
and
rocks.
just some rocks. But they're starting to like put a few pieces of the puzzle together about like where they might want to investigate further. But before they do, Jim Brass and Catherine are at Bridget's house. This is where we learn that she is his ex-girlfriend and her son is Tavian's son.
Yep.
So, and she's trying to say, like, look, yep, he's rich, I'm not rich. Like, obviously, like, that's a bit of a sore spot, but like, I get it. Like, it is what it is. But, you know, like, I more so care about his responsibility to Mel, like he's not there for his son. And they learn in this exchange she has another child, she has a daughter, and they want to know why the daughter wasn't at the carnival with the rest of the kids. And so we get a flashback of Tavian just saying like, nope, not my kid, like not bringing her.
Yeah, this is like they make it look like it's at the poker table, like where the
It
other
does, which doesn't make
conversation happened,
yeah,
which the bellhop did not recall. But
no. And
two other things maybe of note in this scene. The first being that the what's the son's name who's there?
Tamel.
Tamel. He was in the hotel room, and he was in there like that opening.
He was in the opening scene.
It's not the opening scene, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
An opening hotel room scene.
Yeah.
And two, she's a smoker and she goes for her cigarettes, which is important.
Yeah.
They don't really come back to this again. This is like one of those like lost threads. They spent all that time taking the evidence, so it's very subtle, which I kind of like. I also think it's really funny. It's like kind of like, and this is almost like this is a real behavior. Like I've seen people do this. Like they open their packed cigarettes, they're out of cigarettes, they throw it, whatever.
Yeah.
But also, like you can't really show somebody who smokes on TV, and she's in her own home, so she could easily smoke in her own home.
Yeah.
And so it's a nice way of like telling you she smokes while in the scene without her smoking because you can't show it. But this is the thing I want to say. This whole menthol thing was unnecessary. You could have just said with like cigarette smoke, right?
Yeah.
To show her smoking cigarettes. They didn't use that to like whittle her down later as a potential suspect. They should have been Lucky Strike brand cigarettes.
Oh, they should have been.
The
Lucky
name
Strike
of the episode is Lucky Strike.
There you go.
That would have actually tied the two
tied it all
together.
Yeah.
And a neat little bow.
They didn't do it.
That was my one, like, that's my, like, go back in time writer's note for the episode.
That's very fair. That's a good one. I would not have, well, I didn't make that note, so that's a good find. And, oh yeah, so her daughter's not there. They do the whole little flashback of why her daughter wasn't at the carnival, and she lets them know that she took her to Sweet Creatures instead, which is, I put in my notes, Build-A-Bear.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to pay Build-A-Bear. Or maybe there is like, a southwestern.
Brand. They do those like
I don't know
store names all the time though. So yeah.
So, but it's for those in our area. It is basically a Build-A-Bear. It's where you can go and like stuff your own stuffed animal.
Oh, that was very manual. I don't know if you've been to. I'm pretty sure I've been to a Build-A-Bear around this time. They basically have like a machine that fills the bear.
Yeah. They streamline it quite a bit. Like for this, they don't for like. Dramatic
Although
effect,
maybe it's important that she's stuffing it herself for later evidence.
We then have Greg Sanders presenting results to Warwick, and the fiber that he pulled off of the hoodie was in fact rope. And this is where we also learn that the hair found on the same sweater is canine hair and from different breeds. So it's like multiple different breeds of dogs. It's not just like a single. Breeds. Yeah, it's not just like a single breed of dogs.
I mean, could you imagine having several breeds of dogs that could provide different breeds of dog hairs like in one household? Yeah, that would be almost unthinkable.
Whoever would think that? I say with 3 dogs of different breeds in my house. So we then
I feel like most people who have multiple dogs, like there's 2 types of people. They have like, I go to my breeder and I get the same one breed of dog and I have, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And then everyone else, like, especially if you're like more likely to adopt or,
Yeah.
sort of non-breeder situations. You just collect a family of Wayfair
Yep.
friends, right?
That's it's the island of misfit toys over here
Yeah.
as we pass Halloween and we head towards Christmas. We're then with Doc Robbins with Catherine. He found pill casings in Isaiah's stomach. Warwick enters. They didn't find, like, there's a code stamped on the casing, but they ran it through the pharmaceutical database, got no results. So then when Warwick enters, he lets them know, like, hey, I found all this dog hair from different breeds. And then they were like, oh, let's reference the veterinary pharmaceutical database, which they do. They they get a match, and it is a tranquilizer. And Doc Robbins thinks that this is the second dose that Isaiah was given.
Yeah.
Like, one dose should not have been fatal for a child of his age and size, but he thinks that this
Also,
was
like
actually
the
his
blood,
second dosing.
they say like the amount in his blood is really
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
I will say later on in the episode, I think Brass denotes it was like 3 times, or he says like thrice re-administered. And I was like, where did that come from? That didn't match. But I had to like stop for a second and realize, like, oh, this is like anachronistic. Nowadays, you and I could go online and type in and look up any pill, veterinary or human.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is, like, Doc Robbins is like, oh yeah, I checked all the human drugs in the human drug database
Right.
that I barely have access to circa 2003. And it's like the animal ones specific ones were excluded because, I mean, even at that time, database sizes were pretty small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, you probably kept them in different databases because they were for different purposes and you had to keep all this other information. So it's like almost I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, they were able to look it up eventually once they knew where to look, but I was like, nowadays I would be like trivial.
Oh yeah, it would be nothing.
Every pill in the world is easy to look up.
Yep.
Anyone with a cell phone or an internet connection can do it.
Yep.
If you're hearing this podcast right now, you could probably go do it.
It's true, but not probably quite as true in 2003. We then have a walk and talk with the detective, Grissom, and Nick. We learn that the victim bought and sold government-owned land, but there's one mine that he has sold multiple times, which catches their attention, and it was last sold to a Joe McPherson who's missing.
Recently.
Very recently missing.
Yeah, and very recently sold.
As I said the most recent.
Yeah. I mean, just seller. Like time-wise, like not like it's the most recent time, but it was 2 months ago. The most recent time was like last week or something. Yeah. And then I also like that plot line bothers me a little because, like, how do you keep getting it back?
I don't know.
They don't never answer that part of the scam, but presumably I understand why you would want to get it back and resell it, and we'll get there. Mm-hmm. But like, I was like, they never actually explained how. I feel like, again, maybe there was like a line that got cut in dialogue or something where they're like, yeah, people, and like someone's like, well, how does he keep reselling the same mine? And says, well, later on when they figure out what the deal is, they're like, oh, people probably abandoned it. They don't pay the registration fee. And then he goes back in and rebuys.
We needed 20 more seconds of the Vegas Strip, so we didn't have to expand upon.
Well, those actually those things were explained in the same scene, same walk and talk. They got cut.
Grissom and Nick are then at said mine. There's this mine has a bat gate. Again, this is like a fun day after Halloween episode because there's all these. And I if you don't already know, listeners, you probably don't know, but I'm obsessed with bats. I have like multiple bat tattoos, and my bedroom is bat themed, and so I was like, yay, bats! It's Halloween. So they then, as they're exploring the mine, see like gold speckling over
all the cave walls.
All over the cave walls. There's like gold speckling. They also find a casing from his gun. And this is where they're starting to put some things together. And they... I
thought you were to say about the guest star. I was like, what?
You were like, yeah, the speckled gold was this. No, not about the guest star. Instead, the victim was running a scam. And he was salting the mine with gold that he was purchasing from pawn shops and melting down. And then he was putting it in the bullet casings and then spraying it essentially all over the walls of this mine.
There's a funny series to talk about, like how they call things differently, like as if they're trying to be clever. When they're walking in, they're talking about the smell in the mine, and Grissom's like, tetra nitra whatever, which is
Yeah.
TNT.
Yeah.
And then like 30 seconds later in the scene, they're
He
like,
says TNT.
oh, there's TNT here. I was like, yeah, you've already said that part. But it was
Like, you
like
said that.
we wanted Grissom to sound sciencey earlier, but like we really have to say the letters TNT, or no one's gonna know what you're
No one's
talking
gonna know
about.
what you're talking
Even
about.
though the ceiling is collapsed and there's like
Well,
wooden beams everywhere.
we're not quite there
Oh,
yet.
we're not okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We'll be. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're almost there. Instead, we leave this scene with a little insect party that's leading further into the cave.
Yeah.
So there's a
Okay,
little
yeah.
insect party leading further into the cave. But before we're there, we're with
Which
Jim
is great.
Brass.
Not a great insect moment, and we didn't really get any fun insect facts.
We didn't get
From
any fun.
our
Come on, bug guy.
entomologist.
Entomologist. Yeah. We go with Jim Brass, Catherine, and Warwick. They're at a kennel as Catherine and Warwick are inside the kennel. Not inside the kennel, but inside the building.
Inside the property.
Inside the property. They find a small shoe, they find rope, they find a cabinet full of veterinary pharmaceuticals, presumably.
The one kid shoe that they just left in the aisle.
Well,
the first dog that they bring out is going to eat that shoe first off.
Yeah, I think the idea.
It's sort of lay the breadcrumbs for the audience.
Yeah. It's that, and we'll learn right now. Jim Brass comes in and says like, "Hey, found something. You guys probably want to go see this." And he leads them outside, and there's a dead body, and it's a worker. And so my thought is that the dogs have not been left out because the worker who would have let them out is dead.
No, I guess that makes sense. Like, yeah, he hasn't maybe had time to clean up because he's been dead. Mm-hmm. Although I also don't remember them saying like, "Oh, we found this kid when the body was dumped. It's missing a shoe or something," which I thought also would have been a great time to mention that.
Yeah,
they would come back and like fill in the gap. But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and he has like real like red fresh blood. I was trying to figure out if we were supposed to think he was like recently killed or not. They don't say that. They don't do like David doesn't come up, stick a thermometer in him and be like,
no, we don't.
Well, his one scene was cut.
I was going to say, I don't think we have a David scene in this episode.
No David last episode either, I think.
Oh, David. Gotta get those credits, my friend. So then Jim Brass is with Tavion, and he's telling Tavion what happened to Isaiah. Or like at least to the best of their knowledge so far what happened to Isaiah. And he's explaining that the guy who killed him is used to handling dogs, not kids, and so he gave him too much of this tranquilizer, like not understanding how it's metabolized by kids. And then Tavion's like, "Do you think I killed him?" And Jim Brass, I'm going to give credit where credit due, is like, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah, he's doing the classic goad you, right? Try to get you to admit to the crime.
Yeah,
the whole thing, because at this point, I think they have largely assumed that the kidnapper killer is the dog guy. He's just some guy.
Yeah.
Who no one searched his house. No one knows if he smokes menthol cigarettes or not.
No one knows that. No.
We haven't revisited that.
We have not.
That piece of evidence.
Nope.
But he could have. And so now they're actually just trying to solve his murder. Right. And so they're looking at Toombs to be the guy to potentially have done that. And he's like, I think I killed him. And then the best part is what he says next.
Yeah, so he says he doesn't know like who he is, but if he had, he wouldn't have thought about it. Yeah, so essentially saying like I would have killed him. Yeah, I would have killed him, but I didn't even know who he was.
No wonder you think I might be the killer. I would have been the killer.
I definitely would have been
if you just told me where he was first.
Right, but they did not, and so he's saying that he did not kill this kennel worker. Catherine and Warwick are still at the kennel. I feel like it's been a while since they've done this. They like the whole outside area. They put into like a grid pattern, so they're going like grid by grid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like it's been a while since we've had a nice like grid by grid.
It seemed a little over the top.
A little over the top, but I feel like
they
it was
do a
nice.
lot of searches without that. But I was like, I think they were just we were desperate for evidence.
Yeah, and in so doing, Catherine finds Fuzz, and we get a flashback to our Build-A-Bear scene. Before we follow that thread, though, Nick and Grissom are going further in the cave. They find some additional stakes on the ground. This is where they find the TNT. It's like collapsed. There's rocks everywhere. They find a body. It is the missing Joe McPherson, and
with a bullet
Grissom
hole in him.
with a bullet hole in him. And so Grissom proposes that Alex James, victim number one, was trying to hide the body. That he shot Joe and then was trying to bury him, like in the very back of this mine. And in so doing, did not get away fast enough from the explosion. And a nice little wooden stake just came out of that explosion and just booped right into his head.
I need like a karma as a bitch line here from Grissom, or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that would have been a great, could have been a great episode title.
Oh, I could have.
But I do relish the irony that this guy actually did a really crappy job of hiding this body.
Yes, he did a
Right,
terrible
the
job.
mine. It was just laying in the wide open for them to
He did an
find.
awful job of it, which I appreciate, because a lot of times when people try to cover their crimes, they do a terrible job of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, presumably if he didn't die, he could have gone back and set more charges, but
yeah, but
it didn't work out that way.
It did not. Then we're with Catherine and Warwick in the lab. Catherine has brought a teddy bear with her from their version of Build-A-Bear. There's a little visible matchy scene between the fuzz that they found outside of the kennel and the fuzz inside of the bear.
As an avid dog owner, I would be going to jail because I have that stuff all over my house.
Same.
It's everywhere.
Scully is my only dog that does not immediately de-stuff toys. Zeta and Gab are...
It's also used to stuff all sorts of things, not just at the Build-A-Bear. That was like, there was a little bit of... just a little bit of a gloss over
a little bit of a stretch there. I agree.
I will say this storyline doesn't have an arrest at the end of it. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. We're almost there.
I'm not entirely sure they have sufficient evidence to make one, even if they had the person in custody.
Agreed.
It's an interesting end to the episode. We can talk about that at the very end.
Yeah. So we're almost there. So then Jim Brass, Warwick, and Catherine go back to Bridget's house. Trammell is there alone and says that his mom took his sister and he doesn't know where they went, but that she told him that daddy will come and get me.
Yep.
So then we have Catherine and Warwick talking over coffee. We learn that Bridget was getting child support, but only $3,000 a month, which is like pennies considering how much Tavion Toombs was making.
Although
but not nothing.
I mean, 20
especially
years
2003.
Yeah. I mean, it's small because it's only like $36,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if it's post, like if it's, I guess maybe it's not taxed, so it's pretty good for that time. But it's certainly like Apple, like night and day in terms of lifestyle, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he's raking in hundreds of millions of
kid,
dollars.
Very challenging to maybe hold a full-time job on top, or not hold a full-time job, but you have to like have a babysitter or have other people. You know what I mean? There are other expenses than just like food and a roof over your head.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're talking about the case, and I can't remember if it's Catherine or Warwick. I think it's Catherine. No, maybe it's Warwick. Thinks that Bridget killed Price, the kennel worker, because he killed Isaiah.
Yeah, so I don't remember that either, but they did that, and then they go to like a flash.
Yeah, so then they go a flashback, a reenactment of Bridget killing him, and Catherine's like, well, her like last act before running was to give Tavion Trammell as like an Isaiah replacement. Like, it's weird. I don't like it.
I'm gonna abandon my son.
I
mean, I guess the thing, see, she says redemption, but like in my mind, it's like, listen, you can either have the state of Nevada they're going to be looking for you. You're a murderer. You killed a dude.
Yeah.
You also kidnapped a child that went wrong and got him killed. So like, you're going to be pretty high up on the
most wanted list. Yeah.
Having a millionaire's son, like, you can't still be his mom because you're going to jail the moment you're getting ever seen again, if they had better evidence at least. And, you know, is an additional risk factor. So in some ways, maybe you're helping preserve yourself. And
because you're only running with one kid instead of two.
Or even just like you have one less person. Like, Tavion's not going to come looking for you. He's not going to spend his millions of dollars to find you.
Oh, see, I don't know.
Right? Because like he has a son, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now maybe would, because again, I have to keep remembering that Tavion's other son is dead.
It's dead.
And like that's not something you get over.
No,
So
no, it is not.
it's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, they don't. This is the end of the storyline, right?
So, yes, in a
I
sense,
mean,
we get
yeah,
a
yeah.
we get a
Or the
final
end of the
scene.
investigation,
It's the end of the investigation. We do
which
get a final scene with the
blows my mind.
storyline with Tremel being escorted to Tavian's suite. Tavian hugs him. The girlfriend welcomes him.
This is
Again,
where
I
I thought there
feel.
might be a secret subplot. that I had
Oh
to
yeah, because
remember.
the security
I had
guard
to
is like
remember that
walking him.
fact again that his other son is dead.
His other son is dead. And I feel like this episode made the same mistake as last episode, where this should have been the final scene.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was filmed to be the final scene.
It definitely should have been the final scene, but instead we have a very short scene with Nick and Grissom outside, basically saying like, "Yep, like our storyline is confirmed. Everything like fits together, and what we think happened is what happened."
Do you think
And
that?
then shots of the Vegas Strip to the end of episode.
Yeah, I don't think the actor who plays Gil Grissom. I don't want to say like he's like demanding this, but do you think like maybe the studio wants Gil Grissom to be in the last scene, and so that's why they keep kind of like showing these
Maybe.
things
I
out of
don't
the
know.
most
It's so
logical
weird.
order? Yeah.
Again, it's just another episode, especially it feels extra cute because it just happened in the episode before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, why we
Yeah.
do CSI? But that is in fact the end of the episode. So Nick, what did you think about today's episode?
So I liked this episode.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
It was good. One of the things I liked about this episode is that the whole, I guess the Grissom's plot line, I'll call it the B plot line, is there's no one, they're never chasing anyone.
No.
And it feels very sort of, it's nice to have this unemotional, we're just investigating the evidence, let's just work through it.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been a while.
It has been a while.
So I enjoyed that. And again, connected to what is otherwise, like you get that tone difference, right? A very serious storyline. They don't spend a ton of time mourning the death of the small child, which is why I think I kept forgetting he was dead.
Yeah, they kind of gloss over it in a way, which is weird.
Which I do like that storyline. I think, deducting a little points at the end in my head because, like, every time from now on, when they're chasing somebody who's crossed state lines or they're looking for someone, just because they skip town doesn't mean they stop trying to find these people.
Right.
Like, they just sort of like, oh, she left.
Yep, she's gone.
We're never going to find her. She's like Batman. So that's maybe like the mark on this episode. That's like a bit of a like, really this is where this is stopping. You know, it's a much different than Paul Melander when Grissom shows up at the factory and he's just gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we have no idea who this guy is. You know this woman's name.
Yeah.
All they say is we'll put on an APB.
Yeah, they go, we'll put on an APB.
You know her name. You know, she looks like she's got a daughter with her. Like she's got a license plate on her car.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
She does not have a pile of cash. She does not have a support network. She's gonna have a hard time falling off the grid. And
and it's, you know, if we've learned nothing else from this episode, she's not a criminal mastermind.
No. Yeah, no. She needed help. She needed help
to kidnap somebody, and she did not pick the right person to help.
She does not have good judgment.
No.
At least in selecting criminals. Yeah, so that's literally like the thing that maybe held me back. So I landed at a 3.5. I gave it a watch. The rewatch was not bad. I don't know. It didn't give me anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, oh, you're definitely going to watch this twice. So it's a watch. It's a very strong, good watch through. The fact that the thing that bothered me the most is really at the very end of the episode made it pretty easy to just sort of let it go. I get why, you know, they're going for a tone. You know, they're going for like a certain little message, which again is why it should have been the last scene, because it almost would have hit differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was good. It was a good episode. I liked it a lot. I think that, like, to me, feels like, I feel like if you were like hooked by CSI last week, you were watching this live, and then you watch this episode, you'd be like, this show's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to watch this again.
So
I'm going to watch some old episodes.
So that is essentially my rating of this episode. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not a great episode.
Nope.
It's not a bad episode. It's not an average episode. Like, I'd say it's above average by
Oh,
a
yeah.
bit. Like, it's pretty good.
I
So
almost gave it a 4, and then I was like, I think
I'm giving it a
it's
3 out of 5.
yeah, I will give it a 3.5. I
Yeah.
said I almost gave it a 4. I was like, 4 is got to be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. It was pretty good. Again, similar to you, I think it's just a watch. Not that the rewatch was painful. It wasn't like some of the episodes where I'm like,
No.
Like this is dragging and this is like terrible to have to watch again. It's not one of those episodes where there's a lot of things to pick up on a second watch through. Like most of what you figure out in the first watch through, it's the same for the second. Like there's not a bunch of fun new things to learn.
Everything I picked up are just things that I missed. The fact that I was like, I saw the nanny, and it was like, oh yeah, they didn't really investigate it. And then I realized I'd missed the line where she's like,
oh, it's her brother.
It's her brother. I was like, oh yeah. And so like the missing kid is her nephew.
Yeah. So like
probably
not her.
You wouldn't, without some other thread, you wouldn't make her an immediate suspect.
Because there was a question in the stakeout of like whether this was an inside or an outside job. Yeah. And Warwick is like, I think it's an outside job. Like I think it's just like some crazy person who smokes menthol cigarettes. But
great spot to guest star this episode.
Again, I saw him and I was like, I totally know him. I know him. And I looked through his entire catalog and I was like, maybe I know him from previews of these things because I've never seen any of these things.
He's I think it's Mahershala Hashbaz is what he's actually credited.
Okay.
And I think that like his name comes up like right before he's on screen, so it was
okay, so it was like
a real giveaway.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even use his full name anymore. He shortened to Mahershala. That's usually what he's credited by now. But he's also been on the Tonight Show, things like that for appearances. So I know him from that. But I was like, it was definitely me like, oh, it's a big spot to guest star
again.
And then for him to just really be a bit part. I was
very bit part. Yeah,
this is early. I mean, the first thing I knew him from the 4400 is not that show does not have a lot of podcasts about it. It's fine.
Probably not.
But it's good. Actually, wait, didn't we just have no, that was the person from V. I was trying to think. I was like, didn't I just have another spot the guest star from that TV show? No, that was that was the woman who's in V.
V. Yeah.
TV show.
Yeah.
Very similar supernatural TV show where it revolves around the supernatural people and the like normal cops.
Yeah.
It's like a weird format, sci-fi format.
Yeah. So, all right, so we got a 3.5 and a 3, so a pretty good episode. We'll see what we think about next week's episode when we return with season 3, episode 17, Crash and Burn. In the meantime, you can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com and searching for Who Are You? CSI podcast. You can find us on Facebook the same way. We're also on Twitter /X and Instagram at Who Are You? CSI Pod. We also have a website, whoareyoucsipod.com. And also of note, next week's episode will be released on time, but then we'll be skipping a week as Nick and his partner will be out on a cruise, so that does not lend itself to recording.
Yeah.
So next week's
episode,
streaming.
It turns out the I hear that
capability
now,
is not,
but the signal's not great.
Not great. Yeah. So
I know the boat has Paramount Plus, but
and for those listeners, this episode is going to drop on Monday, November 4th. So for our listeners who live in the United States, get out there and vote if you haven't already voted. So I think it's probably pretty obvious if you listen to our podcast, our political leanings, but I don't think we're going to hammer on that. But regardless of your political leanings, it's important to get out there and have your voice be heard, even with the nonsense that is the Electoral College. So
even outside the people that seem really, really big, the end of the day, like you'd be surprised how much show 'em to vote matters in terms of the types of things that politicians care about.
Yes.
And whatever town you're from, county, it could be the difference between getting money for your schools or bridges.
Yep.
It could be the difference between, I don't know, any number of things. And it's just important that people know that you care.
Yes.
So that they pay attention to the things you care about, whatever those are.
Yep.
Because if that's part of democracy is making it so that people care about what you care about. And, everything else, is fair game.
Yep. So exercise your right, go out there and vote. And otherwise we'll talk to you guys next week.
No spoilers.
Nope, spoilers.